It's time to gather as the AFL heads to Adelaide and the Bombers square off against the D's. This is the Sash, definitely not the official podcast of the Essendon Football Club, coming to you from Castaway Studios on a Thursday, which is rare for us. Usually we're doing the over the satellite, but I'm happy to have Mert in the studio with me. Hello, mate.
G'day, mate. How are you?
I'm good. How are you on a Thursday? It's usually Mondays that I see you.
Yeah, I know. It's a bit different. It's good. I like it. Should keep it up. Keep it happening.
Definitely keep it happening. And a special guest, friend of the program. We share the same studio. Host of the DeeBrief, Adrian Horton, a.k.a. Naughtsie. Hello, mate.
Mate, it's good to be in. I'm an intruder, of course. I've been on this show before. It's a pleasure. And I feel bad. I've done Derek, our master producer, a bit of a disservice because you've referenced Castaway Studios. We love this space, and I probably haven't referenced it in the past 3 shows, Derek. And he's given me the donuts. So well done to Rob.
Yep.
You're obviously a absolute professional and a master of your craft.
Yep.
So well done.
Yeah, I was looking at our finances today, so I was making sure we did the shout out. So
They're looking good.
Good to have you here. I feel like the last time we did this, I was on your show, and Nuggets and Adzi were, let's be frank, shit-eyed, and I don't think we had a constructive conversation at any single point. So hoping we can raise the bar a fraction tonight. We'll degenerate as it goes on, of course, but hopefully we can, have some thoughts, have some ideas, get a bit Brett Kirk on the whole thing.
I hope so. It'd be good to dig that one out, actually.
Maybe not.
Just have a casual listen to it one day. But I was going to preface just before, you can bin me at any time. So last season on our podcast, when Tom Marquezani, who's a panellist, was living over in Freo, we used to dial him in randomly on our Thursday preview show with the boys. And we had this thing, it was kind of like Graham Norton style, where Nuggets would reach over and just bin him at the most inopportune moment. We could be 3 or 4 minutes into the conversation with him, and he'd just be like, I'm sick of him. Let's get rid of him.
You just never give Nuggets that power. And somehow he always ends up getting it.
No, I know. So anyway, by all means, you can do that to me.
I haven't got a red button to press, but I do have some beer bottles around me, so I could just throw one across the room.
Yeah, let's do that.
If required.
And because this is video, maybe you could just throw the screwdriver at me.
Oh, there is also a screwdriver here, which we may or may not have used to open said bottle previously. So shout out to everyone on YouTube who's watching there. But you know where I went to get these?
Where?
I went to Liquorland.
Good man.
This isn't even part of the ads.
Joint.
This isn't there, but I went through the drive-through in Thornbury and I picked these up on the way.
We love Liquorland. So the beautiful thing is, I always walk past Dan's. It's just down the road, and I'd never go in there.
I wouldn't go.
I'd never go in there.
I wouldn't go.
See how expensive the beers are in Dan's these days?
Oh, mate, compared to Liquorland,
Fucking disgrace. You just wouldn't catch me dead in there, mate. It's an absolute disgrace.
It's shocking. Did you enjoy the Smitties last year?
I did.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
I actually bought some more from Liquorland over summer.
Yeah, they're underrated.
Yeah,
They're good beers.
Yeah,
They're good beers.
I'm big on them.
We'll have to send an invoice for this conversation because it's not part of the contract.
No,
so,
no, it's not. It's been a great start, boys.
Great start.
Flybys.
Flybys.
Flybys is good.
Yeah, let's talk about the game. That's what we're here for. Maybe let's just get your thoughts on Melbourne as a whole this season. Let's be honest, your premiership favourites, there's a lot of expectation riding. Are you embracing it, or are you kind of nervous going, oh no, we might cock it up? Where's your head at?
Not really nervous. It's so early into the season. I think last year the 10-0 run, it got blown out of proportion a little bit. It's easy to say that as a Melbourne supporter when you're sitting pretty, you've won 17 in a row, as we did. But I didn't actually think we played particularly well in some of those games. I actually hark back to the game we played against you, I think round 3. It was neck and neck at one point. You blokes were looking really good in the third. I think it was a Petrarca, probably an Oliver, that just said, no, we're going to take this game away from you.
It was that goal by Langdon.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. On the boundary.
Yep. And we just put the afterburners on only for a little period of time, and that was pretty much what broke the game open. And you blokes weren't big on confidence coming into it.
We were playing the Ben Rutten Gegenpress, as I call it, which didn't really work at all.
I recall it being a shocking game though. It was kind of like a 4-goal to 4-goal up to 3/4 time kind of predicament. So
yeah.
Yeah, not the best game we've ever seen.
But that's what you get with Melbourne Essendon games in recent times.
Remember that one where Joe Danaher kicked like 8 behinds?
He was one. He was 1-6.
Marvel as well, bro.
He was 1-6, I think, up to half time, and you guys had us on a string at one point.
But the one goal that he kicked, it was taken back after he'd missed it from the boundary, and then he goes and he salutes the crowd.
Yeah,
because he's the biggest knob known to man.
No, it was really weird. So I think like a couple of things here, like Melbourne Essendon games, never a great spectacle for whatever reason. I don't know why. They're just not high in quality.
No.
And then for Melbourne's sake, just talking about the 10-0 that I was before, I think we got a bit ahead of ourselves. I think we got a little bit cocky and arrogant. I don't see that in our DNA, in our makeup this season. I think we're hungry again. Our tackling pressure's been through the roof. Our pressure gauge has been through the roof, which David King and Lee Montagna obviously love on the first crack. It's their biggest modern day game indicator. It's an important one though. I think the fire and the hunger is back within this team, and I think there's a humble nature to Melbourne again. I think we definitely got a bit arrogant, got a bit ahead of ourselves, a little bit complacent. Yes, we got curtailed by injuries and we're a bit crooked in those finals, but looking back on it, we didn't deserve it. The second half of our year last year was deplorable. We were 6 and 8.
Yeah, fair
That's
enough.
the reality.
Yeah.
The way we're sitting now, we're happy, we're content, we're not firing on all cylinders, yet we've had 3 wins by 50 plus.
Yeah. And I guess this year as well, you've got some new faces, whether it be young guys or more experienced guys, and sometimes that little bit of new energy, something different can excite other guys, and whether it's someone competing for your spot that suddenly go, oh man, I got to lift my game because this person's here, or just, you know, a young guy coming in the door who's just excited to play footy, and that you're just going to get that love again.
Judd McVee sounds like they couldn't decide between like a McVeigh or a McPhee, and so they came up with McVeigh.
Yeah.
What's the deal there?
I don't know, but we've coined the name Chris because of Chris
course.
Judd, and it didn't go down well with his family. So anyway, we'll keep calling him Chris.
what did they call you, did they?
I don't think they enjoyed it, but we'll gloss over that one. But he's been a revelation, and he's someone that's plied his trade at VFL level last year. We heard a lot about him coming through the ranks from Casey. Similar story, and Rob actually makes a great point. Cade Chandler's another one that's had to bide his time at reserve level. Jacob Van Rooyen, very highly touted key forward. He's come in, second-year player. He's having an impact. We were very dirty on the team not blooding some of these players last year. However, they look like geniuses now because they've been able to develop and nurture and grow at VFL level, and now they're actually having a huge impact in the seniors. So I think the proof's in the pudding. Geelong have absolutely nailed that strategy over the journey, and I think any team that rewards form but also is patient enough and doesn't throw them in, I think you get your just desserts, and that's what we're seeing from some of these younger players, and it elevates some of the older players. Like, there's nothing better than seeing an Alwyn Davey Jr. come in and have a massive impact. I know he's out for this week, and it's disappointing given it might be wet. He would have been a real threat to us. But you've got guys that are in like 3rd, 4th year, like an Archie Perkins, that are starting to make a huge impact. And you've got a lot of youth in your team. Those guys certainly have a huge impact on the senior players as well. Like, they just give them a massive lift. So Melbourne have embraced that this year. I've got a really quirky stat for you a little bit later about the comparison between the two teams, but
Sure.
I'm stoked that Melbourne have finally bought into the idea of promoting these players that have been playing well at reserve level.
Yeah, I think, look, at least in the way that he speaks in press conferences, Brad Scott seems to be very much like that at Essendon. He's big on playing a person when they're ready, whether that's ready as a development from the VFL or ready coming back from injury. It's all about, bringing guys into success. And, I'm sure through both clubs we can think of countless examples that we've brought in people who are either underdone through injury or they're just not quite ready for senior footy yet. And, yeah, they've been crap. And then they get dropped or they re-injure themselves or whatever the scenario is, and that's just the pain. And, we all love the sugar hit as a fan on a Thursday, being like, oh, this guy's named, oh man, what could happen, blah, blah, blah. But, sometimes patience is the best way to go about it, which can be hard when you don't win a lot.
You've been patient for a long time, though.
Mm-hmm.
Too long.
That's the perfect reaction.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thoughts?
The Mert grunt is synonymous with this podcast. Synonymous, isn't it? Yeah. There it goes again. I'll put it to you because like this is an Essendon podcast, and you don't want to hear me rambling on about Melbourne. But you're a month in. Brad Scott, for what it's worth, I think it was a great appointment. He's tough. He's uncompromising. He doesn't shirk any hard decisions. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care for sentiment. I think he's been great. You're banking wins. Like some people say, it's a kind fixture list. You've gone and played some of the Cadden fodder that sit in the bottom four at the moment, but you've gone out and you've won. Yeah. So I think you've made a really encouraging start. I actually think Brad Scott will be fantastic for you in the long term. Do you agree with that sentiment?
I think he's already changed a lot of things at the club. I agree with you about, I think he's the right man as far as attitude goes, as far as demanding and commanding a certain area of authority about him. I think he delivers a message really well. And if you saw how he responded to some of the things that were thrown to him on Footy Classified, for instance, on I think it was Monday night, he just responds so well. He shuts things down. He keeps his message simple, and that's certainly what some of the players have said as well. I know in the past that's been an issue. So, yeah, I've been quite, certainly very happy with him. I think the other thing is he's certainly changed things from a tactical standpoint. Like I know some people on Fox Footy have said that nothing's improved. It clearly has improved substantially. And yeah, I mean, there's still obviously heaps of development to come, but he's made an immediate impact on the club, I think.
Better behind the ball?
Yeah, definitely. Like
heaps better.
We have improved. I don't think you could have got much worse than we were last year, let's be frank.
Yeah.
We've improved. Does that mean we're a very good side and could go very far? Time will tell. But we have improved, and we've shown that so far at the start of the season. Now as Mert grabs his massive screwdriver to open the beer.
Which one?
The test now is, we've got an incredibly tough month ahead of us. Obviously, we've got you guys, we've got Collingwood and Geelong, so we've got 3 of the top 4 from last year in 3 weeks.
And then we have Port.
We have Port
in
and
Adelaide,
and then we have Brisbane.
Whoa! At the Gabba though, you've got a weird record there.
Yeah,
but that's because we played them with COVID. When the whole team had COVID.
I thought it was 3 in the last 4 there.
Yeah, we have an okay history there. But
we're fucking mint.
Yeah, look, we've
good there.
We've got a seriously tough 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going to see if things are standing up. I don't have huge high expectations this year. Even though we've had a great start, I still don't think we're going to play finals football. I need to see a lot more. But, if we can get through this next 5 weeks and win 2 of 3, win 3 of them,
Two of 3 would be seriously exceeding expectations. Yeah. I think even coming away with 1 would be a really good position to be in. As far as where we are as a club.
Yeah.
Isn't that exciting though? Like you've started 3-1, you've put the teams away that you should have put away. You were neck and neck, or you were level with St Kilda in that last quarter.
Yeah, and we were in it. Yeah.
I listened to your podcast about it took so much energy to get back to level pegging. I actually agree with you. I think like the mental toll that it takes on a team, they're going a little bit harder physically as well, so you start to fatigue. Fair play to St Kilda, they kick away, but like, isn't that a nice position to be in, knowing that most of these games, if not all of them, are free hits, and you actually get a proper sense of exactly where you're at. Like, that's not a bad thing when you're in another, I wouldn't call it a rebuild because it's not, but another reset as a club.
Yeah, exactly. And there's been some changes with certain players in the list playing in positions that, we on this podcast were crying out for many, many years ago, but they just weren't playing there. And then suddenly Brad's come in and it's like, oh, Andy McGrath's gone back to half back.
Good call.
We're actually playing our midfielders in the midfield all the time, stuff like that. There's a fair bit of debate for us about Kyle Langford and the role he's playing, which we can, talk about a bit later. But there's sort of confidence going, all right, we feel like we're putting the pieces in the right spots at the moment. It's just about betting in the system, getting guys used to each other and used to what they're doing. There's still plenty of holes, particularly up forward, that we need to sort out. And look, it doesn't help when you best and fairest is out for the year, and then the guy who's your small forward who came third in the best and fairest is also out for the next 6 or 8 weeks, and suddenly you're like, oh, that's
Schufter sucks. So thanks for that one.
Are we going to go there? I feel sorry for Sam because he's a lovely person, and you get to know about some of these footballers more than ever before from just, I don't know, a content perspective and the things that the clubs wheel out now. I have always had this gripe with Sam that I constantly talk to my father-in-law about, who's a massive Essendon supporter, listens to the show, loves your work. And
G'day, Dave.
Dave said to me, he goes, what's the go with this Weideman bloke? And I was like, well, the thing about Sam, Dave, you need to realise is he gets to the right positions. He just somehow finds a way to drop them. And consistently drops them.
It's frustrating.
It's incredibly frustrating to watch because you look at his leading patterns sometimes and they're encouraging. Like he's getting in the right spot. But unfortunately for him, he's just never been able to tidy up that part of his game. I have absolutely no idea why. He's been in the system for a long, long time. Just doesn't have that mongrel bastard. Like some players have got that mongrel bastard. They hit hard, they clunk. You've either potentially got it or you don't. Because if this guy's been in the system for 7-8 years and he can't find that part in his game, how much longer do you persist?
I mean, just on that, I'm not sure you necessarily need the mongrel because we've seen Peter Wright in the year he had last year, and I don't think really he has too much mongrel at all. Like
Ben Brown doesn't have mongrel and he does it, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, even when Peter's playing amazing footy and he has had patches where he's just been clearly the best player on the ground, he doesn't tend to be that bloke who seems like a really kind of, you know, dominant pack crashing kind of forward. Like I've seen from Weideman, you know, in the few games he's played this year, you're right in that he's getting his hands to the ball, and for some reason, I mean, he was stiff on the weekend, as was Harry Jones, because the umpires decided they weren't paying any fucking marks.
Yeah, he also got knocked out, which didn't help. He was really good round one against Hawthorn.
I thought he was really good against Hawthorn.
Yes is against Hawthorn. The thing actually impressed me the most in that game was his follow-up work. He got guys holding the ball. He was actually getting it out, which is not what I've come to expect from key forwards from Essendon. But
we've seen him for another 2.5 games, and that's enough.
And it's just the ball bouncing out of his hands while, you know, Carl Wilkie or someone.
That follow-up work, though, is rare. So what you'll get with Sam is you'll get one really promising game in every 5 or 6 where not only is he clunking and he's kicking goals, but his ground ball and his follow-up work's really, really impressive.
Yeah.
He's so, he's not even erratic. I'm talking literally that ratio, 1 in every 5 or 6.
Yeah.
You get the full package and then he just vanishes into thin air. It's really... It must be really annoying for him. Imagine how hard this bloke's working at training, trying to improve that consistency in his game, and he just can't find it. So for me as a Melbourne supporter, I want the best for him. I truly feel sorry for him that he just cannot find consistency.
It seems bizarre for a bloke that size, though, who's clearly going to be able to get his hands to the ball before most others, especially as a leading forward when you are kind of dictating where the ball's going because you're leading to it. It seems bizarre that his hands just don't seem to be there, especially when he's got to the point where he's at AFL standard and has been at for some time. There's something about, obviously we see players with different skill levels, especially with ground balls, like Lachie Neale, his ground ball work, Clayton Oliver, Darcy Parish, unbelievable. Hands below their knees, incredible. But, for a key forward to not be able to actually take the ball cleanly in the air, just seems bizarre to me.
Yeah. Keep persisting with him.
Yeah, well, the thing with me is when we first picked him up, I went through the numbers, and the most games he played for you guys, and he was 13.
Yeah.
So
he tailed us a couple of times.
Yeah, and this is the thing. He's had this opportunity where he's come in.
Add him to the list.
He's come in to be the second fiddle. Suddenly, Peter's gone a week before the season. Now he's number 1. He plays one good game, then he hurts his toe, can't play week 2, comes back in and has a terrible game, then he gets concussed in game 4. So he still even had an opportunity to have 4 games in a row. So all I want to see from him this year is have 5 games uninterrupted, whether it's against awesome sides or not awesome sides, 5 games uninterrupted and actually go, because he has there's no one keeping him out of the team.
No.
He's on the team sheet right now for Essendon right now. Harry Jones has got issues. We've got young guy Voss who may come in sometime soon, but he's starting every single week for the rest of the year.
It might click for him one day in the same way that Eric Hipwood is. I think someone said it to me last week. Spud, but someone that I look at and I go, I think the stat was something ridiculous. Like he's the worst rated forward who's played 100 games in his career since they did champion data, right? Which is crazy.
Gee, what a claim to fame.
Yeah. However, I actually think it sounds absurd, but I actually think you look at like the makeup of his game sometimes, and I've watched him and he's been unplayable on his day. But again, it's that whole consistency thing. The guy can just vanish into thin air in the same way that Weideman does. But I still feel like the penny might drop with him one day where I'm not going to say he's not going to be a star, but I'm saying he might end up becoming an incredibly serviceable player for Brisbane to the point where Brisbane might win a flag with him.
He's got a 6-year contract, so you'd hope it's some.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like it's weird with big guys.
But it happened with Peter Wright. Like, no one was expecting him to go the heights that he's gone to. Like, I always thought he was going to be handy, but okay, Mert was apparently. But like, he was basically, he was knocking on the door of an All-Australian position if he kicked 2 or 3 more goals for the year, basically. Yeah. Like, he was in the top 5 for the Coleman in one of the worst teams in the league. Like, it's hard to kick that many goals in a team that sucks.
Yeah, and can't kick to their forwards.
Yeah.
80, how... I've got an interesting stat for you.
Oh, no.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I just saw it somewhere today, and it's completely unverified, so I've probably made it up in my subconscious.
Straight off Twitter, probably, yeah.
Apparently Essendon, it was just basically a stat for every team on what they're best at. And our best stat is that we have the biggest differential in contested possessions. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, typically I would have said that the reason Melbourne might beat us or we might beat Melbourne would be your midfield. Star-studded midfield, a lot of grunt about it.
Yep.
The way I've seen our midfield this year is that we haven't run many players through it, but it has been extremely effective, and especially when we're on. Darcy Parish, his ability to get the ball out. Dylan Shield is so far he's had an incredible, coming up to a year since the Luke Parker incident.
Yeah.
Merritt's been continually doing what he always does.
Just doing what he does, yeah.
Setterfield has been an incredible addition for us. So
can I just quickly say on that before you keep going, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but on Will Setterfield, and I'm going to indulge here because Carlton are pricks, and I'm really starting to understand why people hate them.
Something we can all agree on, yeah.
Just the way they're all chirping at the moment, it's early in the season. Like, sit down.
Crows.
Go Crows tonight.
Go Crom.
Just quickly on Setterfield, they're all sitting there going, look at Essendon, this bloke 7th string midfielder wouldn't get in, all this shit, right? Will Setterfield is the prime example of fixing a gap in your game and your system.
Correct. Yeah, exactly right.
In the same way that last year, Fremantle did with Will Brodie from the Suns. Yeah. Like, he was a revelation that no one saw coming. So for Carlton fans to come out and say that shit, like, fucking sit down. Anyway, I just wanted to put that one out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an issue for them because they do have a lot of the same player. So he's just never going to, he's never going to get a game. But with our midfield now performing how it is, why do you think, and I'm presuming you think you'll win because you're a D supporter, why do you think, or where will you win the game if it's not necessarily in the midfield? Which is what I'm asserting. It might not be correct, but...
You look at the two teams, you're absolutely banking on the fact that it rains.
Yeah.
And it probably will.
Yeah. You've picked a very tall team.
In
what could be a bog.
Correct. Picked a very tall team versus what is a very short team. If you look at your forward line setup, it's absolutely tiny.
It's Jones, one expecting to be Langford, and then the rest of Ruckman.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's fascinating, Mert, that you've got Melbourne that is thinking, we might be able to... Well, we definitely know that we can beat Essendon from an aerial perspective. However, I don't think the conditions are going to favour that. So I'm a little bit perplexed. I'm not worried, but I am perplexed at the fact that Melbourne haven't gone shorter. I think where we win the game, in all honesty, it's the way that we mop up the ground ball defensively. I said this on the DeeBrief before when we're doing our main show. The best teams in the competition for me are the teams that set up beautifully behind the ball and they sweep the ball out of their defensive 50. It's always been, as Rob tries to open his beer, get the screwdriver, mate.
I'm not a screwdriver, man. You can tell I'm not a tradie.
Bloody hell, get the screwdriver out. You've been working on your house. What are you talking about? Yeah. So for me, coming back to that point,
thank you, mate.
I think you guys, you can pump it in there, get it forward at all costs if that's the type of day it's going to be. I still have so much confidence in Melbourne's ability to absorb pressure when the ball comes in. I'm loving the way that guys like Lockie Hunter, Ed Langdon, Angus Brayshaw, Chris Judd McVie, Jake Bowie, Lil Bow Wow, the way that they like sweep behind the ball, the way that we're working it out through hands and we're exiting defensive 50, that's almost been one of my biggest takeaways from our first month. I reckon for all the pressure that you guys can apply to us, because I think Essendon, when they're going well, it's like, you know, it's like bees to a honey pot. Try and like create turnover inside your forward half, like a la Richmond of 17, 19, 20. You guys have a similar blueprint. I think Melbourne will just be a little bit too clinical at the way that they exit. And we've been one of the best defensive 50 transition sides this year. We've been scoring at will. So I think that's where we might be able to beat you. And the midfield's big, and like the midfield could go either way. Like we were talking about it before. We gave your midfield a lot of credit. Like Sam Draper's such a party. I love watching him play, and he's a very good ruckman. Darcy Parish is a jet. Merritt's been a jet for many years now. Jai Caldwell, who I said to Rob when you picked him up, I thought he'd be a beauty. Like, you guys match up well against us. Yes, we've got Petrarca and Oliver, the best midfield duo in the comp. We've got Brodie Grundy that's fit like a glove at the moment. We've got Jack Viney, who's a bull. I still think you guys have proven in the last few years you can match us in the midfield, and you have beaten us in the midfield at times. I just think Melbourne's class behind the ball and the way that they work it out will get you. That's where I think we win it.
I reckon that if the conditions are as bad as we think they are, I think that's going to work in our favour because we
expect late outs for both teams. That's what I'm calling now. I reckon both teams day of, like we've named Ben Hobbs, Nick Hind, Massimo D'Ambrosio, who are all small guys, whether it be mid-forward
I'll be
back.
very surprised if Massimo gets a run.
Yeah. I'm expecting Ben Hobbs to come in as a late one. And then looking at you guys like Melksham, James Jordan, like if it's torrential rain, you're really going to run with T-Mac and Ben Brown? Surely not.
I don't think we should, and we were annoyed that we've brought Ben Brown back into the mix. We don't think that's right. We think the two forwards set up with T-Mac and Jacob Van Rooyen makes absolute sense in the wet. You put Harrison Petty down back, and that's pretty much it for us. Yes, I think Adam Tomlinson's coming in for Jake Lever. Michael Hibbard's been managed as well. Love Hibbo. Thank you for Hibbo, by the way. He's been such a good pickup for us.
Love the pig.
Absolute champion.
Love the pig.
And he still loves the Dons as well, the pig. And he's very well respected down there. But I think for us, if we get our clearance game going, because we haven't been good from clearance, we were pretty poor last year and it hurt us a lot. If we can start to win clearance and dominate in that area, that spells such danger because Melbourne, when they get their handball game going from clearance, definitely the forward handball style, like we can score at will. There was this crazy stat in the round one game against Western Bulldogs where we took the game away from them with 17 possessions. With 17 possessions, we kicked 5 goals.
Yeah,
purple patch. Crazy.
Yeah. Just on that, I reckon it's going to be, again, if the conditions are as bad as we think they are, I think it's going to take a little bit of that run out of it. So I think that the midfield battle is actually going to be just so much more important because it really is going to become a clearance game and a get the ball forward game.
Yeah.
And
the old ball bounces and then doesn't move as it hits the water.
And I also think that away from the midfield, I think it benefits us purely because our skills suck. We can't kick for shit, and we can't hit a target inside forward 50.
Yeah.
So that, as much as it nullifies, the Stephen May factor, and obviously Lever being out also helps that. But 2, it nullifies our turnover factor, which costs us the game against St Kilda.
Best game that Lever could ever miss if it's wet.
Yeah.
Because Lever, I love Lever. He's one of my favourite players at Melbourne. But honestly, your man. Like Jake Lever becomes less valuable in these conditions because he's one of the best aerialists in the comp.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
fucking next to useless on the ground.
Yeah.
it's not a huge out given the conditions.
Yeah.
It sounds ridiculous, and it sounds like I'm disrespecting him. I'm not. But if those are the conditions, it's not going to favour him.
Just one more thing as well on a point you said before, and you spoke about kind of that forward pressure type game plan. What I'm concerned about a little bit, and increasingly so with ADJ out, and to be honest, like I thought he needed a rest after watching him last week.
And you hurt his shoulder a bit as
yeah,
well. So.
like he's a young player, first year player. I think we need to manage him. So it's the
Owen David Jr. for any Melbourne supporters.
Yeah.
No, man, we love Davies.
Yeah.
It's
They might not know we're running with ADJ as the
Brothers in arms.
yeah.
It was the right call
Has
for
Aaron
me.
got kids?
Yep,
Are those good?
probably.
Yeah.
Aaron was a freak.
Yeah.
Alwyn Senior was a very good player, but Aaron was.
I think Elwyn Jr. is much more like Aaron than he is Owen.
Well, if he's
Senior.
like Aaron, you got a serious player.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, continue.
my concern is just looking at our side now, and now in that forward line we've got Jai Menzies, who absolutely does apply pressure and he's done it very well. Harry Jones, who does for a big man, but he's never going to be a game breaker in that respect. We've listed Darcy Parish there, who won't play there. Archie, who does very little really in that respect. Paco, who can do whatever he wants because he's the best player in the game. Nick Martin, who won't play there either. So, and then we've got Will Snelling, who's probably realistically, he's the only one who's going to be playing that kind of small forward defensive pressure, frontal pressure kind of game in that forward 50.
And Caldwell's the other one who'll probably be
So
there as well.
he will do it, but we don't have that. I feel like we really miss out without having a Guelphy in there, which I can't quite believe I'm saying, but, had a great season last year. He's quick. He's so aggressive for the hottest player in the AFL. And, you chuck him in, or remove him from that side, and then, remove ADJ, and then all of a sudden we look a lot slower, basically. So...
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's actually really going to be a factor at all. In fact, the last couple of weeks, I've felt like the opposition has waltzed it out a little too easily.
The only thing I glean from that is Guelphy's hotter than Clayton Oliver.
Obviously.
Yeah, a touch, I think.
It's a tough one. Like before, we looked at the weather and all the teams that come out and all that different stuff. The first thing I thought about with playing Melbourne is that our issue for us is that if we kick the ball like we did against St Kilda, May and Lever and Petty are just going to mop the ball up. And if we come out of this game and, May, Petty and Tomlinson, for instance, if those guys have 10% marks between them, like that's game over.
They almost can't in
We've
those
lost.
conditions.
Well, that's the thing. This is why the game has changed a little bit if the weather is as bad as we think it's going to be. So I've gone from being like, there are other parts of the ground that we look okay, but I'm worried about the fact that we're just going to kick it to your guys and it's going to come back at the other end.
What if it doesn't rain?
You mean the Bureau lie to us?
Yeah.
What would you honestly think just before the game if you're like, far out, it hasn't, like the heavens haven't descended?
Simply getting carried out before the first quarter's finished.
Yeah. I'll be
That's
stoked
what I'm thinking.
because Mert and I are going to be standing there on the hill, so we'll be wrapped that we're not, drenched underwater.
Yeah. Honestly, that would change.
Quickly, Crows 4-1. Go Crom.
Oh, yes. Fuck yeah. Fucking yeah.
Go Crom.
Derek loves that.
Yeah.
Yes, Derek.
Oh, it's on.
Oh, he's got the footy on too.
How's this?
Oh, check it back on.
We've got it on the screen. This is... Gee, we're moving up in the world.
We really are.
So that was the thing for me coming this week. Now, there's something I'd like to get your opinion on, 80. And, I'm not sure if you've seen my weekly YouTube video that I spoke about this yesterday.
I haven't seen the new one.
Yeah.
Can you ask the fans? Do they enjoy the first one?
They are. Yeah, they've gained plenty of comments.
I fucking hate it.
You hate it?
No, they hate it.
Oh, the fans.
Everyone hates it.
I love it.
So, the thing I flagged is that this is the first time in I can't remember how many games that Max isn't playing against us.
Yes.
And Max has done very, very well against our ruckman, whether it's Draper,
He's
Phillips.
He's an incredible player. Max.
Tom Belchambers when he was getting around, like we'd come into that game and like this podcast that we would do 5-6 years ago, you'd be like, oh, so who would you like on your team from Melbourne? We'd be like, oh, Max Gawn's good. that
Skinner.
Yeah,
That's so good.
What's that about?
that was us 6 years ago.
Yeah,
because
How old were we? How old are we now?
we were mid-20s. We're little skinners back then. Don't worry.
I've got a kid now.
I've got a kid now. But my point being is that we've always come into this game thinking about Max.
Yeah.
That's not there anymore.
No.
It's very different. And
That's okay.
Brody's now playing for you, and Brody's great, and he has a lot of assets. I'll ask you a question. Do you remember, and I don't expect you to, do you remember Essendon versus Collingwood in 2020 in the COVID season? Do you remember watching that game?
No,
Did you see that game?
I don't.
Okay.
I do. Ask me.
What happened in that game, Mert? Quickly, in a sentence.
Andrew Phillips happened.
Yes. So we brought Andrew Phillips into this game, and this is when Draper was very young. Well, Belchambers was still in the team. Yeah. So Andrew Phillips came in, and I'm not sure if there's such a thing as a ruck tag. I don't know if that exists, but if that does exist, this is what that was. Andrew Phillips came in, and Andrew Phillips' biggest asset is he's an absolute monster. He's incredibly fit, and he gets around the ground and he just competes.
Physical.
Yeah, incredibly physical. And
Follow-up work is so good.
he bullied Brodie Grundy. He took him to the absolute cleaners. He was all over him everywhere. And like Grundy's the extra mid. He's always there in the chain, but they'd go to him.
Yeah, at
and
this
what happened
stage as well, Grundy was
and this is
close to the best.
This is
ruckman
Pete
in the
Grundy.
game, behind obviously Max.
Yeah. But like this is when the media were having the conversation, being like, "Oh, is this?"
This
guy
is when
better?
he earned his contract.
Yeah, this is the contract year, and Andrew Phillips came in.
I remember.
And he wrecked him.
Yeah, he did.
So I've actually
See,
come into this game
I'd-
going, we could actually get on top in this area that we've never been on top of you in for 7 years.
I actually really like it more so for Draper because I think Draper, Draper, he's been playing well this year. He's more so, he has games where his tap work is really quite good. He has other games when it's absolutely awful and he doesn't make the contest. But he always seems to influence the game by the end of the game, even if it's for, just a quarter in the third or something like that, in either his follow-up work or his tap work.
Yeah.
And so what I'd love to see is him take the next step and, perhaps knowing that he's got Phillips there to support him as well and probably play a bit more forward, that he actually he's the one who takes the reins. He's the one who, we know he's aggressive. He's aggressive towards Grundy and he really acts as that dominant ruckman and tries to enforce himself on the game a bit more because he's done it in the past, but when you've got a Grundy, and a very good ruckman in his own right, but you got one Grundy against two of our big blokes, then I'd really hope he takes that opportunity.
I agree. We spoke about that before. We said it's a big task for Brodie. He's had an awesome couple of weeks, but he had to come up against a Peter Laddams and not a Tom Hickey against Sydney. He did a great job. He absolutely murdered him. He was that second mid. Adelaide had kicked another. They're up by 29.
Go Crom.
It's only halfway through the first.
Go Crom.
Go Crom.
Come on.
Hate Carlton. Then my new hated team.
I go to bed at night, every single night, thinking about how much I hate Carlton.
Oh, mate. I get it.
Welcome to my fucking world.
I honestly understand it now. And then the second thing is Phillips has done a number on him. I've forgotten about that. Brodie came up against Bailey Williams last week and it was a bit of a makeshift setup for West Coast. They didn't have Nick Natanui. Again, he ran right. He had an amazing game, Brodie. He's had an awesome fortnight. But we said, this is a big test. He's got a very good up-and-coming star ruckman in Sam Draper. I think in maybe 2-3 years he'll be one of the best rucks in the game, potentially heir to the throne of a Max Gawn. That's how highly I rate Draper. He's a cool dude too. And then the second thing is Phillips, as Rob pointed out, he just loves to compete. So it's a huge task for Brodie, and then it's going to be a massive task for probably a Tom McDonald and a Jacob Van Rooyen, who's only a second-year player. They're going to come in and help out. Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely one area where you can get on top.
Yeah, exactly. And
No
I think if what you were saying, Mert, that, because of the conditions, the clearance game becomes vital. This is, opportunity for us to have first hand on it in the middle. Brodie, though, his strength is just getting around the ground. And so the test is going to be that, if we do butcher the ball going forward and then when we butcher the ball going forward, the Melbourne players are rebounding it, is Draper or Phillips able to do the work to make sure that Brodie's not just being that extra mid? Because if he is just freely being that link,
I think
that's where he can hurt us.
I think the way
almost
he
as
could
much as anyone
he could probably get us as well is, and I'm not sure how he's played this role this year. Obviously, Max has been, I think, the one who's gone forward a lot in the past. Well, he's increased that certainly into his game. I'm I'm not sure. Do you think, like, do you see him as perhaps drifting forward if we've got only the one ruckman, one off? Do you see him as trying to exploit that and go forward?
He normally likes to, as you pointed out, get involved in that handball chain and become just an extra player.
He's more of a Dean Cox type.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, very much so. Just loves getting around the ground. Likes to get a bit of a gap on his opponent, his direct ruckman.
Is he good at getting back in the hole? Because that's when I think of Gawn, yes, tap work. I think of Max Gawn. I think Max going back into a pack.
Yeah.
And taking a huge intercept mark, and then just Melbourne steady.
Just
think
that's
what I think of Gawn.
You think pack mark? Yeah, Max Gawn.
No, that's not Brodie's game. It never has been. He doesn't do that much, and it's not his role. And I don't think he's been directed to do that. That's where we've probably got.
I guess that's why you got those other guys.
Well, that's why we've got an embarrassment of riches when it comes to tools down back. So Petty, Lever, and May do that all day and every day. And Adam Tomlinson's actually he's in really, really rock solid form. I think we were harsh on him last year because he was still coming back from that ACL. He looks like he's getting back to the form that he showed in 2021 before he did his knee. Mm-hmm. So we're lucky that we've got those great intercept players that can zone off.
Because I think just looking at, and kind of what I was trying to get to was just looking at our defence, and, you know, we've known this for a long time, but we're short, you know. And I mean, Ridley, it seems like Ridley off the back of, you know, the games we've played this year, which is obviously limited number of games, but he's back to what he used to be. He's back to what he was before last year. Zerk Thatcher's playing really good footy for us, and, you know, then
he's our anchor, basically.
They're basically, I mean, Ridley's really only, you know, he's 6'4". He's not a proper tall. Zerk Thatcher might be an inch taller than him.
6'5",
yeah. Away from that, we don't have much height, and we've had Jaden Laverty, who's 6'3" at best.
But none of your guys are like 200-centimetre guys, are they?
We've got Ben Brown.
How big's Roy?
And then
he's big boy.
New kid's massive, isn't he?
He's a big unit. He'd be sitting at about 6'5". I again, I'm not really.
It's funny how you say big 6'5" is big, and we've just been saying it's small.
I'm not really. I look at this game and I just don't think about the talls too much. So there's a few players in our forward line, the mix that we absolutely love at the moment. So Neil Bullen and Spargo are winding the clock back to our premiership year. They've been awesome.
AMB is a great player.
They've been absolutely awesome. And then Cade Chandler, who's come in, has been an absolute revelation. He's had to, as I said before, bide his time to get into the team. He puts on so much pressure. And I think the one player who will be the game breaker and will win this game on the weekend is Cozzy.
Yeah,
Cozzy is the perfect
looking at
player.
that forward line that they've got, and I'll say it for the listeners.
7 goals, Crum.
Cade Chandler, Bailey Fritsch, A&B, Alex Neil-Bullen, Charlie Spargo, Ben Brown, Cozzy Pickett. That's the kind of balance. As you know, as much as we've said you've gone tall and you have in your defence, that's the kind of balance that I am talking about with our forward line that I would like to see in terms of those smalls who are going to create pressure on the ground.
Yep.
When the ball hits the ground.
But in the same vein as we talk about Cozzy Pickett potentially being the match winner, and he kicked 2-5 last week and had 3 goal assists. Just while we're at it, the guy could have kicked 5 and had 3 goal assists.
He's like Paco,
which is berserk.
Yeah,
no
one's like Paco.
So Jake Stringer. And we didn't even bring him up in the podcast before. I mean, it was very Melbourne-centric, and we didn't do a review show because I got food poisoning from said pub. I'm not going to shame them.
Say, name your dog.
No, I'm not going to. We've done that before and pissed off a pub, and they had to call us and go, "Can't believe you called us out."
Yeah, they give you free beers.
No, I did see the owner of that particular establishment once, and we had a beer and we broke the ice and spoke about it. But Jake Stringer... We sit there and we go, okay, we can match up on a Harry Jones. We can match up on, you know, if Kyle Langford goes forward, we can match up here, there, and everywhere. But, like, Jake Stringer is so friggin' difficult. Like, in the same way that Bailey Fritsch is so unbelievably hard to defend, I think he's one of the slipperiest forwards in the comp. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be really interesting. Jake Stringer for us, like, I sit there and I go, far out. Michael Hibberd would have been absolutely perfect for Jake Stringer.
He's still big for Pig.
Maybe it's Trent Rivers.
I reckon you send Stephen May to him personally.
Well, we could because
I think it's because he's like saying he's playing basically full forward.
I reckon
he'll be staying inside 50. He might do like one or two centre bounces. But if I was Simon Goodwin, I'd just put my own.
I think Stephen,
knowing that we don't have any embarrassment of riches down there in terms
correct.
of key forwards.
So you go Rolls Royce forward, which Jake Stringer is. He's an absolute jet on Rolls Royce defender.
Yeah.
Simple. Match it. I do you know what? I totally agree with you, Rob. I think that's the way the Melbourne should roll with it.
I'll rip on one Melbourne player and I'll pump up another Melbourne player.
Oh, here we go.
So quickly, I don't. Not that we condone betting on this show, but get a bet on Charlie Spargo to get a head high tackle and an easy goal because he loves a dive.
He's a midget.
Second one, big pump up. Now, a guy who is new to Melbourne, and you might not know this. Historically, Lachie Hunter tortures Essendon. He has done it countless times to the Bulldogs, loves to play against us, gets a lot of footy, very good player.
Also loves diving, that guy.
Yeah, but he came from the Bulldogs, it's expected.
Exactly right.
I expect him to have a very good game. Like our wingers, they're good young players, but they've got a long way to go. Nick Martin, incredibly talented player, could end up being one of Essendon's best players in a few years if he's not there already.
He's a Royce.
He's a Rolls-Royce. Sam Durham, absolute workhorse, needs to get better with his skills, but just go so hard at it. Very young guys. I think Lachie Hunter might have that little bit of extra experience in footy smarts and could take advantage of those guys.
Oh, I agree. Lachie Hunter has been incredible. It's been such an amazing pickup for us. He holds his width in the same way that Ed Langdon does. Melbourne have got the secret weapon. The way that we use our wingers is, I think it's one of the most... I would almost say it's one of the most critical, invaluable things to come out of footy in the last few years.
All right. Can you all just raise your glasses real quick?
What are we doing here?
Crom 49, Carlton 7. Yay! Woo!
Oh my God!
Touch wood.
Fuck you, Sardi.
Hopefully they keep it going.
That's wild. And hang on, there's still 5 minutes left in the first quarter. Derek,
how good's gather round?
How good gather round's fantastic.
Yeah, this is my favourite round ever.
Ever.
Tip the Crows. Continue. Sorry.
I just think you've made a great shout, Lachie Hunter, and the point I'm making.
He's a really good player.
Point I'm making about the way that our two wingers work, they get us out of trouble. They roll back defensively, and then they link up and get involved in some of our scoring attacks. They've got huge tanks. I didn't realise how much of a tank Lachie Hunter had. Maybe it's something he worked on in the pre-season.
You have to play on the wing.
Well, Melbourne probably said to him, they go, hey, mate, here's a complete reset. You've been at the Bulldogs for 10 years. Your old man was there. He's a father-son. He was in the change rooms as a little tucker.
Father-son?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So he's like, he's absolute Bulldogs diehard, right? And he's come through the ranks. And then suddenly, for whatever reason, they want to kick him out of the club. We've heard about some of his off-field issues. And then they get him into Melbourne. And Simon Goodwin would have just eyeballed him and gone, you fuck up here, you're going and playing at Casey. And no one wants to play at Casey. Trust me.
Yeah.
It's pretty awful down there, especially when it's wet and windy. And he has just taken this opportunity with both hands. So
I don't know that he wouldn't have had that kind of fitness anyway. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I understand what you're saying as far as the performance is concerned, but like this is a guy who's also a multiple. I think he's multiple, isn't he? All Australian.
He's got, I think,
he was 2 years ago.
One All Australian. He's won one BNF, and he came third in the BNF in their premiership season. It's pretty good going.
And he won a flag too.
And he won a flag. Exactly. So great shout, Rob.
Not bad.
Do you want me to pull a few out before we start to wind down?
Yeah. You can tip on one and then pump up another.
I'm not going to tip on any. There's too many to tip on. So,
it's too easy. we as Marcus said before he left here, we do it enough so he doesn't need to. No. And I mean, I'm not going to tip on too many. I've softened in my older age now. I don't speak like a little boy anymore. Kyle Langford, I think, has been growing as a player. I think I really like his development. He's a gun.
Definitely a player that Dave, the father-in-law, has been happy with. Mason Redman, he's a prick and I love his toughness. So I'd love to have a player like him in my side as well. And then I'll give this boy the biggest pump up. So this is the kid he's a poster boy, but I reckon he's going to be a genuine star. He's the bloke that he'll put the team on his back. And I think he's the one that you don't model your whole team around, but I think Archie Perkins is the one. And I mentioned it to you, Rob, in the office like 2 or 3 years ago when we had the debate around Nick Cox, Harrison Jones, Archie Perkins. And you asked me, and I was like, mate, it's Perkins. It's 100% Perkins. He's starting to prove his worth.
Or he's Perkin according to Fox Footy these days. So.
Yeah. He's
What?
Yeah, go watch the game back
see
from
it.
Sunday. Buddy, Mark Howard and
he's Perkin.
Howard and oh my god, the other one. Anyway, Cam Mooney was like, oh, Perkin.
Fucking idiots.
Perkin.
He's an absolute jet, and I've been really impressed with his trajectory. I think he's going to some high places.
I think he needs to take the next step, and I thought he might off the back of his round one. So we'll see.
Yeah.
He's Rooster too.
He's so hot.
Yeah, he's
and an interesting one for us, and look, we've spoken to death about it on our show, but I know I'm pretty sure you're running this as a simulcast on your program anyway.
who knows. I've got Marker on my podcast, so it goes to weird areas.
Yeah, but
which I love.
With Perkins, we've wanted him to play a little bit more midfield time. So we've been talking a bit on our show about centre bounces tendencies and who's been going there. Essendon has used the least amount of players of any club. We've had
5 through there.
5. Actually, it's
including
6,
the Ruck.
So excluding Rucks.
We've had
4 who have
Parish.
had 99%,
Yeah.
and then Caldwell has gone in for like 4 or 5. Paco has gone in for 2. So it's the same.
Merritt, Parish, Shield, Setterfield are the 4.
I can give you the
We've
numbers
had
now.
Caldwell like less than a handful of times,
What are you
and
doing?
Paco in twice last week.
So
and that's it.
Mix it up.
I know
exactly. So
and we've got Archie Perkins sitting in the forward line. We got a Nick Martin who can run through there. Obviously, Jai Caldwell's the big one that we all want to see through there. Kyle Langford, arguably, and then we've got a Ben Hobbs sitting in the 2s at the moment.
He'll become a player.
Ben Hobbs will be an absolute jet.
He's come back from injury. He'll crack in the side. But we spoke it a bit after our St Kilda game, and we referenced Melbourne because the argument for keeping those guys is like, well, if I've got a Ferrari, why would I put it anywhere else? So, but the difference with you guys that you've got your top 3. Viney, Petrarca and Oliver. But then the spread through your James Jordans and guys like that is a lot more, where we've literally, I'll give you the numbers, 80. Zach Merritt's gone to 88. Parish has gone to 88. Setterfield, 85. Shield, 76. And then the next midfielder, Caldwell, with 6.
Wow.
Stringer with 2. So it's a lot of trust in that. I've had a few North Melbourne supporters. I know they exist. I was surprised. Hit me up. And said when he was at North, that's what Brad Scott did. Is he goes, these are my guys, and I'm just going to back them every single week. And there's an argument for why it's good. There's obviously an argument for why it's not as good. But it's an interesting thing.
The game's gone away from that though.
It has.
Like Geelong proved that last year. Geelong were amazing at the way that they kind of shook it up in the middle.
Yeah,
I find that really interesting. I've got one for you as well because I know you Essendon folk like to spruik this one, but average median games last week in round 4.
Yeah, I think we're quite high up there.
Well, listen to this one. So no surprise, Geelong at 155. Second is Melbourne at 132
for games.
for games, average, median. Western Bulldogs third as a huge drop-off to 108, and then it kind of meanders into the hundreds, 90s, 80s, 70s. You guys are sitting at 15th on 65 games, so Melbourne are double, essentially double in terms of average median games. However, this is mind-blowing. Couldn't believe this. Average age, Geelong again, oldest, 28 years, 160 days. Bulldogs are second, Collingwood, Richmond, blah, 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 blah. You drop all the way down to Melbourne, who are pretty much halfway through this list at 25 years, 212 days. Essendon only a couple of rungs below at 25 years and 88 days. So what that says to me, which Melbourne we've been really lucky with this. So we were able to do an absolute full rebuild where it's just all about continuity and playing kids from 18, 19, and you just play them forever. When you got guys like Brayshaw at pick 4, Petrarca Brayshaw at pick 3, Petrarca at pick 2, Oliver at pick 4, we were able to play those guys from day one. And then you got guys like Cozzy who at 21, he's played 64 games. Rivers, who's 21, he's played 56 games. Petty, 23, he's played over 50 games. Spargo's only 23, but he's played 87 games. So the difference there is like people like to talk about, Melbourne are in the sweet spot, which I said to you today, Rob, and they are. They're definitely in their premiership window, and hopefully we're there for the next few years. But we've also done a really, really good job to promote youth, keep that list young and keep ourselves there for as long as we can, still noting that we've got the second highest average games, but we're sitting mid-tier now in terms of age and experience. So I'm really happy about that. I thought we'd come out looking a lot older than what we were. But the comforting thing for Essendon fans is just the sheer fact that you've got so many years ahead of you to develop and grow, and you've got to exercise a bit of patience. And I know you guys don't want to be patient anymore, but it bodes well for both sides.
Yeah,
The way that you look at that.
Yeah, it depends which way you look at it, because the way I look at it is that it's quite damning in terms of our development of players, I think, because...
Oh, he's gone the negative lens. That's not bad.
Yeah, well, if you look at you talk about the age difference there, and there's really not that much, whereas there's a massive gap in the games, which is that's what I've taken out of that.
We've turned over a lot of players in the last few years. A lot of players have either left the club or have been delisted, that sort of thing as well. And then we've obviously brought it. We've got a few guys who are older, but actually just haven't played a great deal of footy. Like Phillips, for example, is one of our, older players, but he's only played, let me have a look, 65 games. You know what I mean? He's 31, but he's played 65 games because he's been a number 2 ruck his whole career. So there's a few guys like that kind of skew the data. I think the other thing for us is that, of our last 4 first-round picks, or 5 first-round picks, there's only 1 in the team right now. They're all injured. You know what I mean? So it's like
Injuries have killed us.
Yeah, like I'd love to be in a position where we've got a guy who's 22 who's played 50 plus games already. But the only guys that sort of happened to was like Andrew McGrath had a very good run. Zach Merritt has played. He's almost played 200 games and he's only 27 still. Like those sort of guys where we've just got so many guys who've just come in, have come out, have come in, have come out, and just haven't had a lot of continuity. And I think that does skew the games towards us. But yes, we do. We do still have a very inexperienced core of guys there. So.
You definitely do. I think you're on the right path. I often have these conversations with Dave, who's getting the 3rd or 4th mention tonight. He'll absolutely love that. He'll be basking in that tomorrow.
Shout out, Dave.
When he texts me.
I'll invite us down to Lawn, Dave.
Yeah, oh mate, love to get you there. We had a nice trip there once. But in all honesty, yes, people will know this, and people that have listened to this show for a very, very long time. I do have a particular hatred of Essendon. It comes from my childhood. So, and just being around people like Mert. So I do think you're on the right path. I do think it'll eventually happen. I've always got this theory as well. You can't keep a big dog down for too long. You actually can't. I think
it's been down for a long time.
I know it's been down for a long time, but I know Carlton are getting a bit of a flogging at the moment, and long may it continue. Hopefully it doesn't blow up in our face. And
51-13 quarter time.
Yeah, well, that's a good score, Rob. We like that. But I think Carlton have come through. Yes, it's taken a lot of time, but they'll be back up again. Unfortunately, they're going to be contending for flags in the next 4 or 5 years. I can't see why they can't with that list at the moment, the way that it's grown. Richmond, they were down for a long time. I think the way that the AFL has manufactured it and engineered the system that we see, and let's not forget, you guys are coming out of one of the most awful, controversial sagas of all time that it could rock any club, could almost send some clubs into administration. They never come back from it. Honestly,
absolutely would have.
There are some clubs who would have folded.
Could have sunk a few. Could have sunk a few clubs. So
Carlton would have folded.
So,
actually would have.
We wish they did.
So that's been lingering, right? So I think the way it's all set up, I think you'll have your time in the sun. You've had a lot of false dawns with a few coaches, but I don't know. For me personally, trying to be objective, I do think this reset with Brad Scott might actually be the one. Yeah. And all you have to do, and I've said this to you for a long time, Rob, all you have to do is just get the monkey off the back with that first finals win.
Definitely.
That first finals win could be the cure and the catalyst for everything.
Several days after that.
Oh, of course. But
I've booked that in.
I genuinely believe
I've quit my job.
It's that one little pressure release valve that's become a giant bolt and nut in the fabric of the club. Once you get rid of that, I reckon you'll see a very different football club.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We had to spill a lot of blood end of last year to do the right things, and the media had a field day, as they always do when any club has a spill. But there was always a part of me that was like, I feel like the right things are happening. The people who talk media language are getting out, and the people who speak football language are getting in. And again, for the Melbourne supporters who are listening, go back and watch a Ben Rutten press conference and then listen to the way Brad Scott talks. And the thing that's funny about Brad is because he's come from this AFL role, half his press conferences are them asking him stuff about the wider AFL because he's such an authority. And I'm like, yeah, John Worsfold was an authority at Essendon, but it was a bit different. He actually came to Essendon because he wasn't that highly rated anymore. He was kind of a little bit washed up, whereas Brad Scott is still pretty, he was. Whereas Brad Scott is very, very, widely rated across the football landscape. And look, it's just very refreshing for us. So,
yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I love it. And yeah, you guys are probably going to win the flag this year. We like to wrap up with some predictions on our show. We get pretty wild with them. So
do you do a bog?
Yeah, so we go. So we go.
Obviously,
it's best on ground. It's best on ground. Most goals, and then the story of the game, like a little headliner, some little thing that's going to happen.
Jesus.
And yeah, it can be serious. It can be an absolute piss take. It doesn't mean anything, but it's up to you. So I'll throw to Mert first. Just put him on the spot. What do you got for me, Mert?
It's not going to be that interesting, to be honest.
Okay.
It never is.
No, it never is. Never is. Yeah, I think following on from last week, it's just going to be Paco kicking another 5, hopefully more behinds and goals again.
Yeah. 4-6?
Yeah, I reckon.
5'11", I reckon. Yeah.
5'7".
Yeah,
5'7". Dominant display again. Somehow not going to get best on ground. It's going to go to Draper, I reckon. Big Drapes. Yeah.
Are you winning?
No, fuck
No. So we predict our own players, but we don't actually say if we win or lose.
Not here to win.
So you got a couple of bogs, but you don't win.
Yeah. Best on for our team.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So you do the same for you.
Random prediction is, in an ambulance by halftime.
Yeah. Being you.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do I go?
Yeah, you
Do
can
I
go.
take the floor?
You
Okay.
can
So So are you predicting Melbourne by how much? Just quickly, Matt. How much?
I'll give you a goal, mate.
Give us a goal. Oh, okay.
One goal.
A tight one.
Yeah. It'll be
Um,
one goal scored for the whole game in the wet. That'll be it.
interesting.
6
Yeah,
points.
but-
6
yeah.
points to 5 behinds. That's the game.
Yeah, Paco somehow kicks 5 goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to go an absolute Melbourne Essendon classic, just a turgid, horrid, awful game. Worst game of the round, which it tends to be
Yeah.
Turgid.
historically.
I like it. It's a good
Yeah,
word.
turgid's a good word. And we'll go something ridiculous like, I don't know, 5-17 to like 7-20. Melbourne just get it done by a couple or 3 goals. I honestly think we'll only get it done by that much. I really do. I think it'll be just so dour. And I do think Paco will get off the chain and he'll kick all of your 5.
The only goals kick for Essendon.
He'll kick all of your 5. Cozzy will kick all of our 7.
Yeah.
And I think the headline of the day will be Bert and Rob getting on TV
Yeah.
on the hill.
Just sliding down the hill in the mud.
Yeah, I think you end up getting to the third quarter. The footy's that shit that you just end up forming a slide
Yeah.
with ponchos or whatever. You just get, I don't know, you get creative in the stands.
See how far you can throw me down the hill.
Yeah, and you just slide down. That'll be the highlight. And do you know what? I reckon it'll get to the point where on AFL 360 on Sunday night, you'll get a run.
Yeah.
And they'll go, what's the funniest thing you saw?
Yeah.
And it'll be you blokes sliding down the hill.
It'll be real or overreaction, and it'll be real.
It'll be very real.
Absolutely real.
The slide on the hill, that'll be the story. That'll be you boys.
Absolutely real.
Feel on the hill.
I'm going to go for Essendon. I'm going to say most goals to Kyle Langford. I think he'll play forward. I reckon Will Setterfield's going to be our best player. I think he's going to have a really, really big game for us. And my story is that Adelaide Oval is going to float away. at some point it's just going to float off into the sea.
I didn't do my bog. Clary, it always is. He's the GOAT. 42 goals, 10 tackles, 12 score involvements, 3 Brownlow votes, which is pretty typical of Clayton Oliver.
Very typical.
You'd love to have him.
Of course you would. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You'd love to have him.
Yeah, I would.
He's the best midfielder in the comp. Why wouldn't you want to have him?
Can't kick the ball, but
No, you
apart from
can.
that,
You actually can.
Yeah.
It's a myth.
he can. He just doesn't do it very well.
No, he does.
He chooses not to.
You need to watch the games more.
chooses-
We've been too amicable. Let's start teeing off.
Yeah, let's re-record. Let's
Yeah,
go.
that's very record. All right.
Imagine if the gloves were off and we didn't X-rated.
All right. Following
You want to hear what I really want to say about Paco?
Yeah, the following Melbourne players are frauds. Here we go. No.
Which ones? Oh, Jake Lever.
My man.
Yeah, you love
my
him.
man, JL. The day he turned the corner and came good, I was like, damn.
I know, and the day that Parrish came good, we had this thing because Parrish was kind of struggling a little bit, but he's always been pretty good. And then, Jake Lever turned the corner.
I think so amicable.
I think they both were all Australian, the same
What am I
team, just
doing?
about.
Hate
Just
dogs.
about. Anyway, Adrian, thank you very much for joining us.
It's been good.
Let's go watch the Blues, hopefully. Lose.
Yeah, thank you, listeners, whether you be Essendon or Melbourne, who've tuned in. Shout out to my brother-in-law and my sister, who are about to have another kid on Monday. Very exciting. So another little D supporter. Mike doesn't listen to the Sash, but he does listen to the DeeBrief.
Listen to this
And
one, Mike.
So does Pete, who's about to have another grandchild. So that's very exciting for them. If you're an Essendon or a Melbourne supporter and you're on the hill, come say hi to Mert and I. We'll have the Plains beanies on and we'll be drenched in our poncho. So come say hi. If you've got an umbrella, bring it over. We'll love to use it.
Yep.
Or a gazebo or anything that keeps us dry.
Can you put a poll up? Like, just I'm interested in data and analytics.
All right, nerd.
Can you put a poll up and say, like,
You going? Question mark.
bring me back next year or ditch me?
Oh, for you. Sorry, I
Yeah.
thought you meant like you going to.
Nah,
are
just
you going to
being a
Adelaide
guest
Oval?
on the show. Like, do people enjoy this? Or they're like, can you fuck that Demons bloke off? He's shit house.
I don't know. I think it's all right.
No,
I think it's actually been quite an insightful
I've enjoyed the
pod.
hell out of it, but
Been
I'm just
quite analytical, which is unusual for us.
I don't know. I thought we're getting older in age. We're yelling less and we're asking more questions.
well, I've got a
Less
child. so
dog of the week, which
having-
sucks.
Having
Yeah.
a child's changed me for the better.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't listen next week, though, listeners, there will be a return of the dog of the week.
Yeah. Dog of the week's hard because it's the same person every week, so you can't change it.
The Caroline Wilson Dog of the Week award
Yeah.
goes to Caroline Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we...
Occasionally Sam Mitchell wins it, but then it flips quickly back to Cara. So.
Oh, Cara.
It's too easy with Sam Mitchell these days.
Yeah, it is.
He's doing all the good work for us, taking down that disgusting club.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I wholeheartedly agree on.
Yeah.
Can't stand them. It's great to see them down the bottom.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
It is. Thanks, listeners. Appreciate your support as always. Thank you, Derek, for hosting us here on a Thursday afternoon.
Love you, Derek.
Thank you to Liquorland for these delicious Peronis that I'm drinking. Thank you very much.
Wait, Derek's flying high with the Saners.
Oh, no. Saint's doing pretty good. Saint's doing pretty
Oh,
good.
look at him.
There's Mason Cox.
Nice and smug.
Pies show on Monday is going to be in here. Mason Cox going to be in. If Saints get up, Derek, you better be in full regalia. You better be in full regalia. Just full St Kilda gear head to toe.
I like seeing the Saints do well all of a sudden. I'm
it's good.
slightly into it.
Yeah. Yeah, Ross is a pretty good coach. I don't like saying it, but he is.
Don't like Ross.
Anyway, thanks as always, everyone. Thanks for listening. Up the plains.
Go
Dogs. Sorry. I have one thing I need to pick you up on.
no. What?
Why is your jumper for the Anzac Day round got a bomber on it? Your jumper has a bomber on it. That is the design.
Yeah.
Why?
I hit up Purdy.
Why?
Well, you got to sell your Plains merch.
Yes. So you're putting it on Melbourne
I
stuff
said,
now.
Purdy, help a brother out.
Get the bomb. Get the planes on
Help
there.
the Sash out.
Oh no! I just found that really really strange that you,
Nah,
you have what is essentially the logo of another club on there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Like imagine if we just like brought out a Guernsey for, I don't know, let's say Dreamtime, and it had a hawk on it or something. Like
I don't know. The last thing I'll say on that is like
I'm sure it's got meaning.
you
and
probably,
whatever.
of course, it's got an amazing meaning. Like one of the only reasons we sit on this land and we have all our freedoms and our autonomy and the ability to do a podcast right now and talk absolute nonsense is because of all those people that have sacrificed their lives.
Yes.
But I just feel like they're running out of designs. Like, and they're just getting to this point where they're like, shit, what do we come up for this year? I actually don't mind it.
We ran out a long time ago because we just redo it every
just
year.
on that though, I love Anzac Day and the Collingwood Essendon game, biggest game outside of the grand final or final series. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I love watching that clash. But to be a part of it the night before, we talk about it on our show like it's an absolute privilege. We love playing Richmond on that night now. We're just happy to be a part of it.
I'm not sure which club it was. One of the NRL clubs did a design for, Anzac Day, and it had like an image of like some soldiers on it, and then someone pulled it up that apparently it was a photo of American soldiers in Afghanistan. It wasn't even Australian or New Zealanders.
Oh, what? Just did a Google job?
Yeah, apparently. So yeah,
Fucking
some real NRL areas.
Sort
there.
yourselves out, NRL.
But yeah, anyway, go Plains. Looking forward to a great weekend. Gather round, everyone. Come gather round us.
Clayton Oliver, he's the GOAT.
Gather.
Bye.
Bye.